Hello and welcome to Career Magic with Nitin Kulkarni. I'm really excited today because I'm going to be talking about my childhood friend. His name is Ashwani Kapur. We went to school together in New Delhi. This at that time we didn't know each other very well. He was in a different division, although we were in the same class, same grade, but different divisions, and we didn't have the same circle of friends. So I didn't know him very well at that time, and after we finished school, we went our own ways, did our professional education, started working, and never came in contact again. But we got back in touch after 30 years. And it turns out that Ashwini is now settled in Canada, and his parents in law live in Pune, which is the city in India that I live in. And Ashwini was visiting Pune to meet his parents in law, and we decided to meet. We met in a restaurant, and it was amazing. So Ashwini is a normal looking guy, medium height. Now, of course, if I want to be nice to him, balding, clean shaven, nice round face with a ready smile. And we met, and it was just amazing. It turns out that Ashwini now he is a product designer. He did his education in design from the premier design institution in India called the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. Worked in India for a while and then relocated, and then not relocated, and then moved to Canada, where he has lived ever since. He currently runs his own design firm, and he got me a nice little gift, a few gifts actually, but this is my favorite one. So this is a really nice tool actually. So this is a keychain that also is a bottle opener. It also has a little light that one can use in an emergency, and a little LED light. And the most useful thing for me and my family, it also opens like this and becomes a stand for a mobile to watch videos. And this has two positions to keep the phone, with a smaller tilt or a larger tilt, and portrait or landscape. And it's just a really useful, very beautifully designed with a lot of attention to detail, and very rugged. We have used it, misused it over a number of years now. Nothing's happened to it. And when we need to use, so I have only one of these, and when we need to use it, fights break out between me and my kids if we want to use this at the same time. So Ashwini is going to get me one or two more so that each one of us has our own. His brand name is Fuso, and he primarily sells his products, at least when I last spoke to him, in North America. And he had a bunch of other lights, LED lights that he got that we were looking at, and very soon a crowd gathered around us to see what it was. And these magnificently designed, beautifully engineered little lights that could be used by medical professionals, etc. So anyway, we just sat and chatted and caught up. And he told me a story during that meeting, which was an absolutely amazing story. And that is the subject of today's podcast about, how do we become successful in meeting long-term goals. That's the topic today. So let me just tell you the story. So Ashwini was working in a hand tools company in Canada, and he'd been working there for a number of years. Was a very senior, respected person over there, a designer. The company was the profits of the company over a period of time were diminishing because of competition, because more and more manufacturing was happening in China. There was a pressure on prices and therefore margins, and so they were looking to do something different. And so Ashwini was looking for an opportunity to do something else, something different. And he's a very curious guy, an extremely hardworking guy. He reads widely. And during that process, this was around the 2008 time frame, he came across an article in a magazine that talked about mosquitoes. Now, our common understanding of things that kill human beings most around the world, diseases, we think that it's cancer and heart disease. We hear a lot about them, but that is not true. In this article told Ashwani that the biggest killer of human beings around the world were mosquitoes or mosquito-borne diseases, malaria, dengue, the white Nile virus, and a bunch of others. And that actually came as a surprise to Ashwani, that mosquitoes kill so many human beings around the world. He also at that time was aware that there was a big bedbug menace in North America. And so he just said, these little bugs are causing so much havoc. The US was spending $2-digit billion to deal with the consequences of the mosquito menace. And he said, so he started looking at, okay, what are we doing about it? And what he found was that mosquitoes are so dangerous and cause so much damage because they breed very quickly. So, and they breed in puddles of water. So if there's 100 mosquitoes in an area, that given favorable conditions, that 100 can become 1,000,000 in a matter of days. They breed so quickly. And what Ashwani found was that people were attacking this problem the wrong way. What they were doing was they were all remedies related to killing live mosquitoes after the numbers had become big. And he said we need to actually target the breeding of the mosquitoes in order to take care of this menace. And so he started thinking about it, and he said that the answer to this problem is, if they are laying eggs in a puddle, what I'd like to do in an area is create my own puddle and attract mosquitoes to it. So they lay their eggs in that puddle which I have created, and then I can take care of those eggs by destroying them in that puddle. So in an area, all mosquitoes lay their eggs in this puddle. I destroy them so the breeding stops. That was the simple idea that Ashwani had. But guess what? He had zero expertise in mosquitoes. He didn't know mosquitoes. He could design a product. He's a very good product designer. But how do you attract mosquitoes to this puddle? That was the big question. And that required expertise. And he sort of had a feel for it. And he said, there are these chemicals called pheromones that attract animals and insects and so on. And so where do I find these pheromones? How do I even know? And plus, the desire was to kill mosquitoes, because there are many species of mosquitoes which are not harmful. So why kill them? Some of them are even beneficial. So the idea was to selectively get rid of mosquitoes of certain species, and that was a difficult job. So he said, okay, that sounds like a wonderful project, big opportunity around the world. That could be something. Went to his boss and said, I want to do this. His boss said, boss, this is not in our area of expertise. Why are you doing this? I can't have you do this on my time, on company time, because we are already experiencing margin freezes, margin pressures, and there's a lot of work to be done. So if you really want to do it, can you please do it in your own time? And Ashwani said, no problem. So he got after it. He started reading more about this. And what he figured out was that there were two challenges. The first challenge was finding the expertise. And that expertise typically was available in universities. Researchers who were researching different aspects of mosquitoes. And the second issue would be funding. How do you get these projects funded? So he located one professor, which was a few hours drive from where he lived, in a university. So he contacted this person and started talking to him and discussed this idea with him. This professor actually got excited and said that, yeah, what you are suggesting is doable. We just need to figure out how to get funding to figure out what pheromones can be used to attract these species of mosquitoes. So the next thing was, obviously, Ashwani couldn't get the funding for himself because he didn't have the expertise. He started working with this professor and the university authorities to figure out how to get funding. So there are various funding agencies. There are, United Nations organizations and lots of organizations that in order to alleviate these diseases will give this kind of funding. So they had to write proposals, get funding. So he started working on it with these people. This process took almost 4 years, 4 long years, during which time the research was happening. They eventually got some chemicals or pheromones that could be used, but then it needed to be tested. In the meantime, Ashwani also put this device together, which basically had 2 puddles. The upper puddle, which would contain the pheromones, where the mosquitoes would lay eggs, and then at a certain time the water would be sent through a filter, the eggs collected and destroyed, and so on. So I don't want to get into the mechanics of that device. That is not important for the purpose of our discussion. But they went through some 9 iterations of this device and they tested it. Mosquito season is very, very short. Okay, summertime. And summertime in North America and where they wanted to test, very short. So they had to get the testing done, which was a very time consuming and costly affair because they wanted to be selective, they wanted it to be effective, very, very effective. And so this took a long time. They finally came out with a commercial product, by which time the owner of the hand tools company was on board. He saw the progress, he got excited about it, and he started throwing some resources and some intent behind this project. They came out, so the name of the product is Green Strike. You will see it on Amazon US and all. It's available, it's being sold over there. It came out, it became a very successful commercial product. And but the key is it took 7-8 years for this to be realized. And when I heard this story and all of the difficulties, so many moving parts, government agencies, university authorities, professors, funding, your own company and its priorities, it's a very, very complicated endeavor. And Ashwani had no expertise in it. To chase down this project and make it successful required a certain kind of mindset to get it done. It's a very long-term project, something that actually got realized over a long period of time. And I said, Ashwani, how did you do this? And then we got talking and I thought I should make this video. And in my conversations with him, I realized that you need 3 things to be able to do something like this, which Ashwani did. So underneath that warmth and that beautiful smile, there is a steely determination in Ashwani. He's a guy who knows what he wants and goes out and gets it. And that's why this was such a huge learning for me. So there are 3 things you need to do what Ashwani did. And long-term projects can be anything. They can be projects where you are trying to build some very complicated personal capability, or you are trying to reach a certain point in your career or anything. Long-term goal where you have figured out that this is where I want to go. It's a complicated path. It's going to require a lot of time and effort, and you go out and get it in a planned manner. 3 things, like I said. The 3 things, I like acronyms. So I call them the 3 P's. The first P is passion. The second P is prioritization. And the third P is persistence. These are the 3 P's required to make these sorts of things happen. Let me talk about these one at a time and just illustrate from Ashwani's story what he did and how he made it happen. The first P, passion. Now, if you don't have a passion, it's very hard to do something that is of a long-term nature. Why? Because it is going to take a lot of time. It is going to take a lot of resources, energy, and perhaps investment. So without passion, it's really difficult. Sometimes you will not. Now, in this case, very interestingly, Ashwani didn't have a passion to kill mosquitoes. He was not passionate about it to begin with. His passion at that time was to create something impactful that could really vault his company to the next level. And he found a vehicle for that passion. So the drive came from his desire to do that, and that fueled this mosquito device project. So you got to either have a passion, or you got to have a bigger goal or a passion for something for which you find a vehicle that will help you get there, and therefore develop the drive to do that project in order to meet your goal that you're passionate about. So you have to create that and create the drive. Without drive, it is not going to happen. It is necessary. All these 3 P's are necessary. The second P is prioritization. Now, by their very nature, long-term projects are not urgent. And we all run after urgent things. The daily whirlwind of our personal and professional lives controls us. And so we've got to answer emails, we've got to meet people, we've got to get projects done. All of that takes its toll. Ashwani had a lot of that going on. In fact, initially his boss refused to allow him to use company time to research this and move this forward. So he had to find time to do this and prioritize it in his schedule, which he's really good at. And so the key to prioritization, so there are lots of these sayings, right? Rome was not built in a day. A house is built one brick at a time. A long journey starts with the first step. Lots of these sayings and cliches. But how do you make it real? You've got to find the next thing to do. Cultivate a bias for action and say, okay, every week I'm going to do something and make progress on it. And so Ashwani's principle is that, so he really believes in this. During my discussion with him, he told me in this 80-20 principle, 20% of the activities, high value activities, create 80% of the result. So he figured out what these are: funding and the mosquito expertise. And he really went after them and made sure he was spending time on it regularly and moving it forward. That's what we've got to do. Prioritize, make sure you make time for it. It can then move forward, and don't let it sit on the shelf or in cold storage for a long time. If you do nothing on it for 3 months, it'll go into cold storage. You'll lose the momentum and forget all about it. So the key is to prioritize it continuously and make progress. That's the second P. The third P is persistence. Why do you need persistence? Because it is long term and you are going to run into obstacles. The very first obstacle is finding time for it. And then there are others you'll run into, like he ran into funding obstacles. Ashwani did. What did he do? He looked at other sources. He sought partners. He talked to people. He didn't have expertise on mosquito pheromones. What did he do? He talked to people. He researched. He found partners. So persistence can be achieved by pushing through and by finding partners. 2 more P's. Persistence means when you encounter obstacles, you have to push through, not give up. How do you do it? You find partners. You find people who can actually help you move forward. And you just have to gut it out, grind it out in those times. That is when persistence comes to the fore. So prioritize, persist, and keep moving it forward. Find partners when necessary. And then you get it done. So Ashwani finally got it done. And that's the way to move forward on these long-term goals. That is my lesson from Ashwani. And it's a really exciting thing, because lot of things where we want to create great impact take long-term projects to fulfill that. So try this out. If you have something in mind that you want to do, a big project, a long-term project, try Ashwani's 3 Ps and see where it takes you. You will be successful. Give it a shot. So thank you very much. See you again next time on another edition of Career Magic with Nitin Kulkarni.